Our top story this morning is part of Montana Attorney General Tim Fox's Aid Montana initiative. Montana Highway Patrol drug interdiction teams have seized 56 pounds of methamphetamine in just 6 months of operation. MHP Criminal Interdiction and Canine Commander Lieutenant Jim Sanderson has details.
Statistically, it's pretty impressive. In the last 6 months, the 6 team members have seized over 56 pounds of methamphetamine, which is a significant amount. The entire Montana Highway Patrol in the year 2017 seized 68.06 pounds of methamphetamine. So the criminal interdiction teams were the vast majority of that meth seized.
Sanderson said they're even having trouble finding places to put all the drugs they have uncovered. Sanderson said the canine officers are able to detect the odor of drugs wherever they may be hidden inside a suspect vehicle.
I do know that the team members have arrested 61 total people on felony drug arrests. And they're very creative. They will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on building secreted compartments inside the vehicles without a whole bunch of training and experience. It's really hard to locate that.
Sanderson said the hope is that the more drugs the interdiction teams can seize, the more expensive the drugs will become, thus decreasing the demand. Missoula Rises presented a panel and community discussion last night entitled Cops, Who Do They Police? Who Do They Protect? Panelists included Jake Coolidge with the Montana Justice Project, Emily Withnall representing the LGBTQ community, who spoke primarily about domestic violence, Meg Singer with the Montana ACLU, and Dustin Monroe, Iraq War veteran with Native Generational Change. Withnall described her personal experience as a domestic violence survivor and said victims of domestic violence have good reason not to trust police.
Protecting each other is considered a professional courtesy. Some call it the blue code of silence, which also for me brings up the question, okay, so if you're a spouse of a police officer who's being abused by the police officer, who do you call?
Withnall related statistics from a study on police domestic violence.
40% of cops admit to having been violent with their spouse or children in the previous year. Cops have an abuse rate at home that is 15 times higher than among those who are not officers. 8% of police officers admitted to inflicting severe violence, including strangulation, beating, and using a knife or gun.
Monroe described some of the problems he's encountered with the justice system and the University of Montana.
When I was on probation, I couldn't even get housing. No place would rent to me around here. No place I'd want my family to live, you know? My probation officer even called the university and let them know that I was on probation. That's how much she went out of her way to make it hard on me.
There were no law enforcement representatives on the panel. Remarks by the panelists took about 45 minutes. Afterwards, the attendees broke into small discussion groups to address the topics presented by the speakers. By the way, the entire discussion is captured on YouTube video on the story on our website at newstalkkgvo.com if you'd like to listen. Federal wildlife officials have agreed to prepare a conservation plan for Montana's National Bison Range as part of a settlement in a lawsuit brought by an environmental group. The settlement filed last week in U.S. District Court resolves a 2016 complaint from Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, or PEER, an advocacy group based near Washington, D.C. It requires the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to complete the conservation plan by 2023. The government also agreed to pay PEER $50,000 for its legal expenses. A 29-square-mile refuge within the Flathead Indian Reservation is home to about 350 bison. One of the lawsuit's main purposes was addressed last April when Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke reversed a plan to give management of the range to the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. One man is in custody at the Missoula jail after a multi-vehicle crash on Saturday. Luckily, according to Missoula Police Public Information Officer Travis Welsh, no one was injured.
Well, it was about 11:55 Saturday evening when officers were called to the report of a multi-vehicle accident in the 1800 block of Dixon Avenue. When they arrived, they learned that a vehicle driven by Brett Johnson had actually struck a couple of parked cars.
Officers located Johnson near the crash and arrested him on multiple charges.
Officers made contact with him and subsequently arrested him for DUI. After the arrest, they learned that he was also a registered violent offender who was not compliant with his conditions as set forth by the registry, which in the state of Montana is a felony.
Johnson's now facing 6 charges on top of the felony for failing to register as a violent offender. He's facing a felony theft charge. The Montana Sexual and Violent Offender Registry currently lists Johnson for a past robbery. A Belgrade man serving a 20-year prison sentence for bilking investors is asking a judge to waive a requirement that he pay nearly $5 million in restitution and fines. The Bozeman Daily Chronicle reports 56-year-old Richard Reynolds said the state is preventing him from operating a business once he's released, which would make it nearly impossible for him to repay his victims. Reynolds was denied parole in August until he came up with a, quote, more suitable, end quote, restitution plan that didn't involve owning a business or handling others' finances. Gallatin County Attorney Marty Lambert has not filed a response to the petition, which was filed on January 22nd. Reynolds was convicted of 2 counts of fraudulent practices, embezzlement, and operating a Ponzi scheme that defrauded at least 140 investors. He's maintained his innocence. Gas prices traditionally increase with the demands of a growing economy, and 2018 appears to be no different. Petroleum analyst Patrick Dehan says, he explains.
The economy is looking very strong, and that could contribute to gas prices in 2018 that are probably their highest since 2014. So it looks like most of us that drive will probably be shelling out anywhere from 15 to 35 cents a gallon more during much of 2018 than what we spent last year.
U.S. oil exports are now on their 10th consecutive record week. Meanwhile, cuts in OPEC production continue to drive the price of oil and gas up. Dehan says Montana drivers could see the impact of the trends at the pump.
Prices have edged up in Montana a little bit. Average prices now up to about $2.59. That's about 2 cents higher than where prices were last week when they were closer to $2.57. Many folks have seen the price of oil, which today stands at about $65.50 a barrel. That's quite a bit higher than where we started the year when prices were in the low to mid-50s.
Prices in the rest of the country are actually increasing faster than here in Montana. Our News Talk time is 6:12.
News Talk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Mostly cloudy skies today with areas of rain, possibly mixing with snow. It will be windy with wind gusts as high as 30 miles per hour. Temperatures will be pretty mild in the low 40s, but quickly drop into the 20s tonight. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster, KECI 13.